Welcome to today's sermon, where we'll explore the profound spiritual healing practices of Jesus and the apostles and how they were often misunderstood and criticized, much like modern-day spiritual healers and practitioners. Jesus was a revolutionary figure, performing miracles that went against the norms of his time. His healing acts, such as curing the blind, raising the dead, and casting out demons, were seen by many as threats to the established religious order. In John chapter 9, verse 16, the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God, for he does not keep the Sabbath." Here, we see how Jesus was judged not for the good he did, but for defying rigid interpretations of the law. Jesus often criticized those who were judgmental and self-righteous. In Matthew chapter 23, verse 27, he rebukes the religious leaders, saying, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of the bones of the dead and everything unclean." This shows his disdain for those who were more concerned with appearances and rules than with true spiritual connection and compassion. Jesus also promoted a deep personal spirituality. In John chapter 4, verse 24, he says, "God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth." This reflects Jesus' emphasis on a spiritual relationship with God that transcends traditional rituals and rules. It's a concept that resonates with many who practice modern spiritual healing, and even those who identify with aspects of witchcraft, which in its true ancient sense was more about healing and wisdom than the dark practices often associated with the term today. Now, let's address a common misconception rooted in translation. The line, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live," was actually never included in the original Bible. King James, who commissioned the King James Version of the Bible, was deeply afraid of witches and pagans, and altered the original text to reflect his fears. The original line was, "Thou shalt not suffer a poisoner to live," referring to a murderer, not someone practicing spiritual or healing arts. In the original Hebrew manuscript, the word used was amam ashepah, which referred to a woman who uses spells to harm others, essentially an evil sorceress, not a healer or wise woman. For those practicing what might be considered modern Christian witchcraft today, a more accurate biblical term might be seer or prophet. These were individuals in the Bible who had a deep connection with the divine, communicated divine messages, and often performed miracles. Like modern practitioners, they were respected for their spiritual insight and their ability to guide others in their faith. In Luke chapter 11, verses 14 to 15, when Jesus cast out a demon from a mute man, some accused him of using the power of Beelzebul, the prince of demons. Jesus replied in verse 17, "Every kingdom divided against itself will be ruined, and a house divided against itself will fall." This response highlights that true spiritual power cannot be divided between good and evil. It must be rooted in divine truth. The early Christians, too, faced persecution for their spiritual gifts. The Apostle Paul, in Acts chapter 16, verses 16 to 18, freed a slave girl from an unclean spirit, and for this, he and Silas were imprisoned. The opposition they faced was due to the threat their spiritual power posed to the established order, not because their actions were harmful. In summary, Jesus and his apostles were spiritual healers who were often misunderstood and condemned by the religious authorities of their time. They faced judgment, not for doing wrong, but for challenging the status quo and emphasizing a deep personal relationship with God over rigid adherence to rules. The Bible shows us that true spirituality is about love, healing, and connection with the divine, a message that resonates with modern spiritual practices, including those who identify with Christian witchcraft. Thank you for joining me today. I hope this message encourages you to explore your own spiritual journey with an open heart and mind, free from judgment and fear.